Back to the budget, and before the speech, Dr Nthabiseng Moleko from Stellenbosch University told me here on lunchtime that it should provide a policy perspective, her words, for propping up the country's economic output. And, she says, lay out a vision for how economic growth is going to happen. So, did the Minister deliver? Dr Moleko, good afternoon to you and welcome. The budget should lay out a vision for economic growth. Did the Minister address that satisfactorily?
No, he did not. I'll be very quick and concise. I won't act as though that happened. Remember, what he did mention was that the projected growth and the current contraction of 7.2 was confirmed. A positive is obviously the less than projected shortfall of 304 to 200, just over 200 billion. But the growth projections still remain around 3.3 for this year, and next year 1.9 in the outer years. So we haven't really seen any built-in economic vision to take us out of the trap. We're in a low growth trap, and it looks like they've accepted that we'll remain in that.
Those increased growth projections that he made, and let's be honest, he was fairly bullish about it. Are you buying that?
I think the fundamental problem is, where will it come from, Jeremy? I think the issue in South Africa right now is not really, we understand that stabilization needs to happen. I don't think anyone will argue that we want to be more efficient as a state. We want to see more outcomes-based delivery. We want to see evidence-based planning. But I think the real issue is the growth. Where will it come from? Because industry is contracting, output is contracting, economic activity, particularly with the loss of jobs, less people of incomes, less economic activity from consumption. So you'll be pushing that aggregate demand back inside. So the consumption of output coming from households is really going to be lackluster. Therefore, the knock-on effect of that is businesses will be constrained, and they will also struggle to meet their own costs and expenses, and maybe having to lay off more of our people. So the real question is, how do we bolster that? What are we doing? Are we doing enough so that we can see an increase in economic activity? And I think that's where the real focus should be. And I think this budget had an opportunity to do that. And I don't think we'll stop to say what should be done so that we can do that for our country, because it develops and it determines the long-term trajectory for South Africa at all points. Everyone is affected by the economy.
So answer your own question. What should he have done to achieve that goal?
Okay, so I think there's considerable action that could have been taken. One, we have what we call surpluses in the capital markets, the compensation fund, and we aren't talking about things that are not there, the UIF surpluses. These funds are sitting with surpluses, they're not utilized. So we're talking about finance gap shortfalls, and yet we are sitting with surpluses that can be redirected to productive investment. That's number one. And I think that the government and the nation has an obligation to make use of those. Two, the assessment of the effectiveness of the economic recovery plan of the president. We would have thought that at least by now, most countries that have stimulus and interventions that are seen as urgent monitor them. The National Command Council monitors every action that is taken on the pandemic. Why are we not doing the same for the economy? It's a crisis right now. So the assessment of the effectiveness of those indices of economics outcome coming from the ERP, we have seen literally every indicator now, particularly unemployment, worsening. So it's saying that the initiatives are not necessarily as good as we had proposed. So therefore, why don't we review them? I think the three indices that we should probably target, both in the short and the long run, three I would focus on. One is industrialization. We have to make sure that the money we're going and taking into both the DTIC cluster, economic cluster, DFIs, is used effectively. Are we getting value for money? But also, is it helping us really industrialize? No. So I think we need to look at the policy tools there. Two, the level of employment and poverty in South Africa is actually reaching levels where it's not sustainable. And beyond unsustainable, it's going to be socially unsustainable and unstable, because 70% unemployment in some areas for the youth is not sustainable. So any program that is not labor absorptive, we need to review. Or rather, we need to emphasize the labor absorptive and the employment intensity of the sectors that we target, particularly within our industrial cluster. And I think the percentage of what we call gross fixed capital formation changes the long-term growth structure of any country. So the proportion of that goes into productive investments, or the reinvestment from both the public and the private, has to be revisited to see how you can increase that. And that's where the surpluses come in, Jeremy. The surpluses are redirected there so that the long-term revenue projections and generation capabilities are built. Our focus is so much on expenditure cutting and not on generating growth and revenue enhancing. We're not coming with revenue enhancing projected terms. And this is where we are failing. And I think we need to put a lot of emphasis on that.